It's been 2 years since I announced my transition to my former employer. And it's been almost 2 years, almost, in June, since I left my 6-figure paying job. In sharing this, what I'm hoping to gain or hoping for is to inspire someone else to listen to your internal being. And what's even more ironic is another creator on here, Ain't She Precious, she shared her journey in quitting. Now, I may or may not post this. I may post this because my goal is to, again, spread awareness and hope that somebody is listening to their inner being and doing what they feel is appropriate for them and their growth and their development, hell, even your family potentially. And that's ultimately my goal. So I had been working in education for 8 years when I left. I consider myself an educator. I consider myself a student as well. But I consider myself an educator because I worked really, really hard to get my master's in educational leadership. Like, I started working in schools, and immediately, I think right before I got the job, I had started my educational leadership program. I had a lot of full circle moments, and there's potentially some reflection in that as well. During that path of me going back to school and having one of my old vice principals be my actual professor in one of my favorite classes that I took while I was pursuing that degree. All that to say is I got my master's in educational leadership and went to pursue leadership in the network that I was in, only to feel super burnt out. I went and spent majority of my time in education working with elementary school. And when I say elementary school, I'm talking K through 5 for that specific, or K through 4 for the specific network that I was working on. And when I went into what we consider to be the operations fellowship, I learned, or I had wanted to continue in elementary school. Now, elementary school and middle school have very different systems, and I feel like I trained for the elementary school systems, and while elementary school systems have more systems in place because their kids are younger and they have just a little bit more hand holding is necessary for them, that is what I felt prepared to do. It was the last few months of the fellowship, the last few days inside a physical school building, and the very start of COVID that I was told that I would be transitioning to middle school. I was full of emotion. I had spoken to my mentor and told her, like, what if I decline this? Because I really don't want to be in a middle school. Like, I really don't want to be in a middle school. I want to do elementary school. That's where I'm feeling prepared for. I just feel like, I felt like in that moment, nothing was ever going to come easy to me. It wasn't going to come easy because all this time I spent, 6 years training in elementary school for me to now have to literally start all over. And I remember it was the beginning of COVID. I had just come off of my step back. And what a step back is my mentor, who basically was the director of operations for the school that I was working on, she transitioned, or she stepped back and was out of the school. So basically I was the director of operations running the school with my principal partner. I was running the school, and I hit a bunch of hiccups. Like, we had a parent, I will never forget this story. I had a parent who she decided she decided that she wanted her kids to come to school, but she did not like one of the teachers, and she made a lot of threats to this teacher. And it was my job, of course, to keep both the kids safe, our teachers safe, and ultimately the parents safe, in a different capacity. But like, she just wanted to get at this teacher, and that wasn't something that I was going to allow. Had plenty conversations with her. I had situations where she felt that it was okay to threaten me. We were just in a really rough space, and while I didn't have direct access to the director of operations whose school I was working at the moment, I had access to her boss, which was also my boss, and he had to step in and come because it was like 8:00 one night, and she decided she wanted to call the cops and the student liaison that works with the police, and she was upset because they still weren't on her side, because her side was not valid. All that to say is I had been through the trenches, okay? The trenches in an elementary school setting, and next thing you know, now I'm having to start all over and learn all over as a middle school director. I was very upset. I'm not even gonna hold you. Like, even to this day, I just feel like the more and more I reflect is like the cards were always stacked against me. Like, it was never going to work in my favor. If you remember, that was also the time, or right around the time, we were about to start having to have all these protests in order for us to stop the police brutality, because we had lost George Floyd. We had a moment where our senior leadership had conversations with the school leadership, and they were just like, how are you guys feeling? And I had a lot to process. I was processing, the loss of George Floyd, and how I feel like that directly affects the men that I have in my life. And I was also in a place where I was still trying to digest the fact that I had just trained for all these years in a grade level in which I was no longer going to be working in. So it's like this feeling of being numb was also kind of present, but then also like I was feeling at the same. It was a very weird time. Also, was very, very terrified of COVID because I didn't know what was coming of it. I didn't know if I had given up my car, so the only way I could get around was through public transportation, and I was not happy about that. Because I was living in New York City, I felt like there was no need to have an extra bill, like I could save a coin or whatever. All that to say, it was a hard time. And when I decided that I was no longer going to have the odds stacked against me, and I needed to prioritize my own mental sanity. I had been a director of operations in a middle school for 3-ish years, and I say 3-ish because I had also stepped out for maternity leave at that time, and I was just tired. I was exhausted. The mental exhaustion, the physical exhaustion, because in the midst of all of that, I had moved about 1 hour and 35 minutes away from my school. And then I had an added responsibility now of taking a baby to daycare, which basically added, she wasn't in daycare, she was in at a private sitter. But that added to my commute, and I just couldn't take it anymore. I also had a conversation with my manager prior to me leaving for maternity leave, so still baby and belly, and I had said to them, like, hey, I can see myself maybe managing doing this job a little bit longer, but it's only if I have you as my manager and as my supporter, because this is really hard work, and I feel like you actually get me. And it wasn't something that they could, uphold. Now, the person who had me after, like managed me after, was a lovely person. Lovely. There was just certain aspects that I enjoyed more about my previous manager that I wanted to continue in order for me to stay in that school and stay in that position. when I came back, I think I came back in October after giving birth in April. I think I had only been at that school maybe 2 weeks. And I was like, I can't do this. Like, I'm not going to renew my contract for the next school year. And I hadn't had the conversation with my partner. I mean, I had the conversation with him, but I don't think he really got it. Because that ended up being like a snafu in our relationship. Like, he was not happy that I wasn't going back to that job, and I hadn't had another job lined up. I just couldn't. Like, I really physically, mentally could not, and the responsibilities just were not shared in a way in which I could make it sustainable for me. So I had to do what I had to do, and I have no regrets. The only pain point is that I have another job that I'm currently working at, and the pay just isn't what it's supposed to be. I've also applied to thousands of jobs at this point now, and I'm still getting denials, and I know I have the capabilities and the leadership, but I also feel like my imposter syndrome was making me so that I was manifesting less than what I deserved. Because I was skeptical. I wasn't sure. I did not feel comfortable. I continue to do all of the things self-help wise. I have a new therapist now who is helping me work through those emotions. And I had a therapist back then too. But the things that I was combating with my therapist then were things work related. So like the stresses of work. There were certain employees who I had to do the hard work that the network wanted to get rid of, but I had to do the legwork to get rid of this one person specifically. There were other things that I just didn't feel like I was prepared in that aspect, and I felt like I was also set up. But when I think about me as a Black woman in a workspace, it was necessary, or it is necessary for me to always put me first, because nobody else is going to put me before them. Like, absolutely nobody. I don't care if it's the person who loves you the most. My mom, she's always going to think about her, so as she should, because I am an adult, she's always going to think about herself first, which means I also in turn need to do that for myself. I have to put me first. My daughter is a very close second, but I have to think about me. And I say all that to say is, if you are in a stage, if you are in a era of your life where you have to make a really hard decision because of employment, do what you can with what you have, okay? And what that means is, if your mental capacity has reached the top and you need to take that break, you need to take that step back, you need to take that pivot, baby, pivot. Because guess what? At the end of the day, if you croaked tomorrow, your job will be posted before your body is even identified, okay? Remember that. It's sad, and it's kind of like a gruesome thing to have to think about, but it's the God-honest truth. Organizations, as much as they may value their people, they're not going to take the time to not have a role not filled because they're trying to show you that they value you by waiting. You have to do what's best for you. You have to do what's best for you. I told this in an earlier video about like my birthing story and how my daughter came as soon as we started spring break, because I worked at a place where I had to walk up 4 flights. God forbid I fell down one of those flights of stairs, and God forbid something happened to me or happened to my baby in that midst of all that stuff. It was going to be I'm so sorry. You have to advocate for yourself. You have to do what's best for you. You have to do what's best for your mental. I think about it now. There were moments in that even transition where I was like, hey, I can't be on this specific system. I can't cover this system because I cannot walk up and down these stairs. There was no grace looking to be given at that point. And I think I was very hard on myself and pushed myself an extra mile that I probably should have said no thank you to. Because at the end of the day, who do I have to think about? My own self, my own child. Do what you have to do for you, because boom, you only got you. You have to think about yourself the most. You have to think about yourself at all times. These people are not going to let me in. You have to think about yourself. I think we're in a place also in the world, just current government. I recently saw a video on TikTok where somebody was saying that they're looking to deport us, like American citizens. And I feel like the person was also identified as a me. So I don't know if she was saying us as in black people were being deported. Also, where are we going? Because my birth certificate is from here. I don't know. But you have to think about yourself. You have to protect yourself at all costs. Like, I'm so proud of us for not us as in black people for not showing up for all these protests that were happening on April 5th, because at the end of the day, we have to protect us. We got to create our own community. We have to do what we need to do for us. I was happily in my cozy girl comfort wear in the comfort of my own home planning my baby's birthday. No regrets. Zero. That's because I have to think about me. If you enjoyed this content, understanding and learning, and you also are trying to redirect your mental, I want you to write in the comments, I felt this. If you are in a season where imposter syndrome is showing up for you, and we want to talk more about that, because I have a whole laundry list of things that I want to talk about when it comes to imposter syndrome and how we can work around it, put imposter syndrome. I hope that you like this video, comment, subscribe, turn that bell notification. I am trying my best to drop 2 videos a week on YouTube. This is just a place where I'm documenting my thoughts. I don't have therapy every week. We all need a little bit of therapy. I'm an advocate for therapy, but this is going to act as that form of therapy where I'm able to get all of this off of my chest and hopefully build a community of women who feel like they can also get all of this off of their chest, while also understanding that we're moms, we're busy, we're entrepreneurs, we're just trying to do it all, and we all have to lean on each other to get the success that we deserve. Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. And until next time, bye, Bookie.